All right, well, we're here with another one. Of course, if it's on this bench, you know it doesn't work correct. So here it is, the Tinseltown Plaza. I think it was new for 2020. It's a nice looking piece. I actually kind of like all the colors. I'm not a big Christmas house person, but actually looks pretty good for a Christmas house. And in case you haven't seen it before, I'll just give it a little round look-see. Try to at least. It is not a porcelain house. Lemax has gone to a lot of plastic and resin. This is resin, and the whole back is plastic, and the base is plastic. Probably makes them a lot easier to make as far as costs, repair-wise. Generally, the plastic ones are now easier to work on, which is a positive if you're trying to fix it. But this one was specifically bought at 1/4 its original price because it's broken. This was $170 brand new, and I want to thank Rachel Runner. She found it for me, and I paid her. She shipped it, so I now have it. When I got it, this little guy here is broke off. He's in the box. I didn't glue him on. Not a big deal yet. But this is supposed to rotate. This is the escalator supposed to go up and around, most likely. The tree is supposed to rotate. Comes off, as you can see. And I believe this is supposed to rotate. I'm probably wrong on that one, though. Can't tell. So, and I'm going to plug it in so you can enjoy the what it does. Another problem is this doesn't work. You can do the volume, but that's all it does. And it is actually rotating. But the escalator isn't moving and is violently bouncing. I'm not sure if it's supposed to, truthfully. But every time it clicks, you can see these guys are bouncing. So, and then of course, we got a broken switch. So I'm going to turn it off before I go insane, because that is extremely loud in person. I'm sure it's loud on the camera, because generally the microphones amplify said noise. So, as you can see, the sound works, the light works, of the animatronics, the tree works. The guys that go around the base kind of work. And here is the bottom. Let's pull the tree up before it falls. Get that out of the way. You have underneath the rubber feet, because this one's missing. It wasn't these two, actually. One of them is stuck to the foam inside the box. The other one's just missing. You have screws. You also have an access panel right here. One of those, you know, probably stickers that says if you screw it up, you're gonna, you know, void the warranty. Yeah, pretty much. So let's first get rid of that sticker. You don't need it. Not like I can return it. It specifically said on the box, non-returnable if you purchase this broken item. So I bought it so we can help people who might have this one hopefully fix their own, or at least give them an idea where to start. First thing I'm going to do is try and unscrew these screws, if I can find a screwdriver that fits. I should probably prep things in advance, but I'm just not organic. So I'm going to first remove this little access panel, the one I just peeled the sticker off, and we're going to see what's inside. Could be something, could be nothing. Switch will probably be one of the last things I work on. It's not that important to me. If it was my display, I would have it on anyway, and just have a master switch that turns it off and on. This house is not one of the houses that has to have a reset point. So, 4 screws are out. Alright. Lost the gear. Slide it back in and I'll tip it up on its top so you can see what's in, and I'll try to. And there we go. this gear went right. Yar. So, this gear drive mechanism, this is the carousel that's clicking with the people. I'm assuming that one of these gears drives over to the Christmas tree, which is directly below this one, straight down. Don't know. But let's plug it in again and see what rotates and how it rotates. Sorry for the noise again. Alright, so of course it's not going to work because there's nothing holding it. This is the main drive gear. So let's get it turning and see if there's any broken teeth. Okay, well, I don't see any broken teeth on the main drive gear, so why don't we just pull all these out and give them an inspection. But this is the gear that does drive that Christmas tree. Here's the end. So, this gear is still inside. This gear, barely makes his hands move. I did not know that. Or hand. Interesting. Like I said, I'm not a Christmas house guy. But this gear, as I'm spinning it, it's really, really tight, but it's not chipped or broken. So now I'm going to try and turn the carousel. You can see I'm turning it. It's a really large gear. It's an outside drive where the gear is about this big, slightly bigger than this center drum. So I'm just going to rotate it and see if I can see if any of the teeth on this are mangled. Actually, I'll just rotate it by pushing the characters. That will be a lot easier. And it's binding up. And if you look at the escalator, people are... Alright, so the clicking sound, the problem is on this side. In order to get this off, you just heard it skip. You're going to have to pull all these rubber feet off. Let's clear this stuff out of my way. Let's get these rubber feet off. Now, if you have this and you tear these rubber feet off and you can't get them to stick back in, you can use a drop of super glue, which I'm not a big fan of for things like this, but rubber contact cement, or even a dab of hot glue. Or you can just go to a store, and these are usually in the hardware section as rubber pads for furniture or speakers. Alright, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 screws we got to take out. And they're the same as the access panel I removed. I think it's interesting to have an access panel since you really can't find these gears anywhere. So it's not like you're gonna, take it off and go to Lemax and say, hey, I need this big gear here, it broke, or the smaller drive gear for the Christmas tree. Access panel might have just been for ease of assembly. It would be nice if they sold parts that you could fix it, or if they had part numbers. Yeah, this one does not have a part number. Sometimes you're lucky and they leave the part numbers on them. You can cross-reference them and find them on eBay, Amazon, Alibaba, hobby websites. Sometimes the gears are standard hobby gears. I found the larger the teeth on the gear, the harder it is to locate. If I ever find them, I'll have a video or a list on the Facebook page or the discussions page on where to locate replacement gears. These screws are actually pretty tight. I'm surprised. Two more. Last one. Smokes. I'm sure they're just tight because when they screwed them in, they cut their own threads. They probably generated some heat to stick. Let's remove the access plate. And I'm going to assume everything falls out the bottom. Still being held over by the carousel. I'm just going to try and see if I can see what's inside. Yeah, we got the main drive mechanism over here where I was showing you the little gear that was spinning. The circuit board is pretty much below where the Christmas tree was, at least one of them. I'm sure there's another one in here. At least the motor has information on it, so if the motor ever dies, you can replace the motor if you can get it apart. Apparently there's a secret, and it's not telling me what it is. The drive mechanism goes up to the escalator, and the drive mechanism is right in here. You can access it through this door. I'm going to see if there's some clip or something that's holding it. There is a clip. I don't know if this, I see a clip. I don't know if this is going to release the base or not, but we're going to try. Like when they make things difficult, right? Yeah, my pliers aren't long enough. Let's try a slightly bigger screwdriver. If I can get it apart, I'd show you the clip I'm referring to. Clips released. And the other concern I have is there's three screws screwing right down to the center. If that's the case, you probably have to separate this entire top to get to those 3 screws. I have 90-degree tools, but they're not going to fit through this door. So the clip's released. it's trying to pull this whole wheel down, and I don't know if this wheel will fit. Spudger. And something slightly bigger to hold it open so I can get a better view inside again. That clip hasn't moved. Trying not to break it. Well, that was not supposed to happen. I lost one of the plants. I think that's all I lost. I might have just broke it. Nah, she's still stuck. And apparently there's a clip inside this door as well. I don't think that's going to make a difference. No. I have a funny feeling this entire facade has to be lifted off. I also have to get the broken piece out. So, better break. Ah! Alright, well, it's not really that funny, but it is to me. Apparently it landed on this gear when it shot out of my hand and broke through the plastic. The piece inside is this hole. So, yeah, that wasn't supposed to happen. But, you do have to separate this facade. Luckily, the glue they use is extremely brittle, which means you can pry it off. If you do not want to do it this way for fear of damaging it, like I just did, because, you know, reasons, you can heat it up with a heat gun. So, and the reason I think you have to separate the facade is the escalator and his arm. His arm come off. Oh wow. There's a screw right behind this Christmas sign, which is got a little dab of glue on each side. It's hot glue, so you can peel it off and re-glue it. But there's a screw here, which is connected to a bar that goes all the way down in here, and it's also connected to the end of the escalator. It's a slightly more destructive video than I wanted. Pop the cam off so his arm isn't connected. It's a pretty good cam. It recenters itself each time. Nice. There we go. Now, let's see what else it's caught on. I'm not expecting to lift completely off due to the wiring. I need to get inside. There's part of the broken plastic that I can glue back in. But now that I punched a hole in it, I can get to another clip that's in here. See if that has anything to do with it. love to see how they build these things. Sure make life taking them apart a lot easier. Freaking cam. Is that my problem again? It's just caught on Santa's arm? Nah. Come on. Get the arm out of the way. Yeah, so that's the issue, is Santa's arm keeps getting caught inside this ovaled hole, and it is pulling down. How do we get his arm to stop grabbing? It's got some pretty decent tolerances, I'll tell you that. I think his arm might actually have to come off. Got the screw out, but it's also clipped and glued. Let's see if it's the same type of glue that can just be cracked off, or if it has to be heated. No, it's hot glue. So, and we got a connection right here. Should be for the lights. And we got another wire. Come on. There we go. All right. So the clips I was pulling on, you don't need to worry about. This apparently this red wire is the speaker. You don't have to worry about it. It was just caught inside the base. So to remove this thing, you don't technically have to unscrew the bottom like I did. So I just saved you some time. This is actually this right here. If you can see it, because the wires are still hooked up. This is soft glue, so it's probably hot melt glue, hot glue of some sort. The red wire with the gray wire on it is your speaker. It was caught on this green wire, which has a lot of slack. As you can see, it can lift it off. So you will have to, you don't have to unscrew this cam screw that I took off, which is right there, like I thought. So I can put this cam screw back in. You have to pop his arm off. Now his arm has also got soft glue on it, so it is hot glued on. If you don't want to try and pry it off like I just did, you can actually just use a heat gun or a blow dryer or something to warm up the glue and slowly peel off his arm. It's not every day you get to rip Santa's arm off. I'm pretty damn sure that's going to put you on the naughty list. Yeah. Sorry. My dexterity is going. Also, this thing keeps moving on me. Screw it. Do it later. Alright. So, pull off his arm. Whether you want to heat it or yank it off like I did. Don't worry about the screws on the bottom, apparently, unless you want to check these gears here. Turn that off and move it. Don't drop it, because then you'll just punch a hole in it and break off a plant. Unbelievable. So, here's the escalator, which isn't working right. The people just rotate around. It's on a drive belt, and they're just glued to a rubber track that spins inside this housing. I'm going to turn it back on and see if we can find out why this doesn't move, since this how does this actually work? Let's see if we can figure that one out first. Ah, right there. One moment. I want to unplug the top from the base. This green wire, yeah, I'll show you up in here. All those wires is a light distribution board. The green wire plugs into the big pin, which might be hard to see, and then all the smaller ones just go to all the different lights. So it's just, there's more of the broken resin plastic stuff. So it's, the green wire is just for the lighting. All the drive mechanism is here in the bottom. This is a lot easier to work on. And now you won't screw it up as much as I did, hopefully. As you can see, I got glued here, 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 there, and a dab here. And a dab here, and a small dab there. Which is why it was so easy to crack it off by starting here, where there's this big gap, and then work my way around. This is hard glue, similar to super glue. It's a resin type glue. It does break down in heat, but the problem with it is generally the heat that is required to break this glue down is hotter than the plastic can handle, so you'll distort the plastic. It's easier if you crack it with a screwdriver or a stiff spudger. It's another piece of the broken wall. So I am now going to stick these gears back in, these guys, so we can see where the broken, clicking, obnoxiously loud gear is, because I'm sure it's a gear. It definitely has the telltale sounds of a gear. Apparently I lost a nutcracker too. I think these two gears are identical anyway, right? Yes. So, again, I'm only using the old noses because the dexterity issues. Right there, that's one. You don't have problems with your fingers, you can probably do it just by holding it and sliding it in place. Two. And let's put the intermediate gear in. At least try to. So unless you want to inspect these, don't take this cover off. That is going to be the big takeaway. And if you do it upside down so they don't fall out. Wow, this should not be this hard. There we go. The problem I was having is lining up the teeth on the bigger gear and the other drive gear, trying to find the sweet spot where it fits in its slot. So now we need to put this cover on, which has the axle and pin indentations. They all have to line up. So what I have to do is, there we go. Because at an angle the gears are trying to tip, so tip it on its straight up and down. They'll self-center, at least it did for me. Hopefully they'll do for you if you have to take it apart. reasons the videos have slowed down a bit is because I am losing dexterity in my hand. Diagnosed with severe carpal tunnel. So, videos will still come out. It'll be slower. It's easier to do the taste testings. Grabbing a spoon is easier than what I'm doing right now with the screwdriver. So, also another delay is some of the more recent ones I've been working on have required special parts, which getting those from China, where these things are manufactured, and I'm not getting them from the manufacturer. Do not think I'm getting them from Lemax. Is really hard right now since I ordered parts from my display because I was trying to have it done for Christmas for everyone. I just got my parts, it's February 3rd right now. I just got my parts over the weekend. So it took almost 90 days to get the little connectors I need to finish my display. So it is obnoxiously long, which slows all the processing down. Ooh, that sounds so good. So, it's skipping right here on the drive for the Escalator. The clicking sound is the ring gear and the worm gear, if it was a car. It's skipping. It's going to break all the teeth off eventually. So, got to find out where the Escalator is bound up. The Escalator has a screw here, a screw here, a screw there. Why is she no turny? I think the drive shaft is removable. There's a pin on the top and the bottom. Let's find out. No. Nope. So... see if this pin does anything. Push the pin in, and I'm going to see if I can lift the gear up. Nope. So, let's try this and this one. There's little finger clips. There's two on each of the ends of the arch. I'm trying to see if I can lift the arch with the Escalator out. And try not to break any more of this thing. No, they're in there pretty good. No screws on the bottom. So, let's see, one more try. Nope, no good. Alright, you disassemble the Escalator and try and leave stress off of it because it doesn't turn. I can't even manually turn the gear. Oh, there we go. Yeah, something's wrong with this Escalator. This Escalator is causing most of the hate and discontent that it's spewing out with that loud clicking sound. Damn Escalators. Always causing problems. Very interesting how they gave the 3 dimensions by using 3 different pieces of plastic. 2 are transparent, 1 is white. Give you a dimension of depth. It's actually pretty interesting. This is held in with a dab of hot glue. I am going to remove these 3 pieces of plastic just to get a better view. There's a dab of hot glue. Something a little bit more aggressive. tab. I want to remove these to see if there's anything hidden behind it, and then, oh, there's also glue on the top. That's why she won't come up. There we go. There you can see the 3 layers. You get the 3 dimensions of the ornaments, and then this is the glue. Here's the glue on the bottom, and that's the glue on the top. This one's only holding the glass in, or the plastic. This one was actually attached right there. Just want to get out of the way so I can get a better view of the escalator, see if there's any pins in the back or any screws, which there's not, as you can see. And then also less likely to break it since I already broke the actual facade. And I'm sure some people cringed, but it is what it is. I can't change it already. It's already broken. And I'm going to try and fix it. Now what I just did was I took the screwdriver and I pried up on this gear to put this gear in the center of this gear so I can turn to see if there's any binding. See if you can see it's raised so it's not touching the teeth. It also allows me to check the teeth because as it's clicking, it's wearing down the plastic. So I want to check the teeth and see if any of them are damaged beyond use. So by moving the escalator, I am turning the... This escalator is really stiff. Let's plug it back in, see if it works without the escalator. Here we go.
Merry Christmas.
Just that way you can see it's turning. So, and you can, if I do this, you'll see the arm is going up and down, hopefully. Pivoting. So, all my issue is in this escalator binding up. So if you have this piece, there's a chance that your issue would be the same. Part of it is, I'm going to try and get it on camera for you, is you have metal barrels, or at least they appear to be metal. I won't know until I get it apart. There's one right here, and one right here that it spins on. I don't know if you can see this. The escalator is not centered. It's off to the right, and it's binding in the outer plastic, and I believe that is the cause of this gear skipping. Luckily there's some flex in this gear and it's just been skipping, and it has not broken the teeth of this flat drive gear or this ring gear, thank God. This probably a lot easier to find than that, just because of the size, the diameter. By prying up here, the drive shaft or the gear shaft actually was pulled out of this bottom gear, which is right here. When you stick it back in, you're going to have to line it up and then push down on the metal pin, not on the white, the nylon gear. You'll push the gear off the knurling. And then you might have other issues. So anyhow, it looks like the biggest issues are going to be here on these drums. So we're going to try and continue taking this thing apart. I'm hoping there is no screw behind this plastic fake arm rail. There is a chance because you can see there's a screw here, a screw here, a screw here. If things, hopefully that was on camera, there's a screw here, and a screw there. If things are equal, then there should be a screw here, which means this has to come off, which is probably glued on. Yep. And no, there's no screw. Broke the little bit of glue on the top, the bottom's still attached. I'm going to take these two screws out right here and see if I can just pull the whole front. That sucks. I've got it. I can pull it back. I can see the mechanism. And let's see what we can do. It's kind of nice that almost all the screws on this one piece are all the same. That is very nice, so I'm not worried about mixing up what screws go where. Wish they were all like this, and it might be the new way. Apparently there's a dab of glue. When you pull these pins, it's not popping up. It's because there's actually glue in the bottom. Or excuse me, pull the fingers. That sounded like a fart joke. There we go. Yeah. If you can see, there's dabs of that hard glue, the acetate glue. You might be able to see the fingers here and here. They fit into these grooves. Now we have this out. And this plastic, the fake handrail, there's a glue dab there, a glue dab there, which lines up those two glue dabs. So getting this out, you would have had to do what I just did by peeling it forward to break the plastic free of the plastic here. And yes, there's that screw. I said all things being equal, there's the screw, and of course, there's glue in the screw. My favorite. I'm using a blade screwdriver to cut through everything versus a Phillips, which works. Here we go. It's spring loaded, so that's going to be fun to put back together. Here is your belt with all your little guys all glued in place, and gals. And these are metal. They're pot metal. I don't believe they're magnetic. Nope, actually they are magnetic. They feel like cheap metal. Either they're magnetic or the magnet's picking up the steel pin in the middle. This one has the rubber. Since this is the drive, this piece of rubber right here in the middle, or nylon, vinyl, sorry, it's probably vinyl. That is the drive for the belt. It creates the friction, which allows the belt to rotate. I am going to center it, see if that's part of the issue. It is off to one side. It's off to the side that's binding. Would have been better if they made the whole piece like that. If this piece breaks, get some vinyl tubing that's smaller, or about the diameter of this drum, and then heat it a little bit and stretch it over this fat piece here, and then you should be good to go. Hardware stores have vinyl tubing. It's clear. This is opaque white. Another thing you can do is, if you want to spend the time, it might be a two-piece drum. You can try and crack the drum free. The reason I say crack is you've heard all the cracks this thing makes taking apart right here. Then slide it over, or you can paint this with a rubbery type substance like liquid electrical tape or the spray bed liner, something that has a high friction coefficient. So here's the back side. The screw's still in it because that glue is holding the screw in. Here is the tensioning device, which this would be the spring that tensions it, which goes on like so. And then this fits in this groove here. Of course, the spring would be on the other side to keep it under tension. That keeps this tensioned onto the friction device, which again is just a piece of rubber tubing. So I'm thinking it's just out of alignment. I don't see any reason why. The pins are still straight. The axles on the drums don't appear to be bent. This thing still has all its teeth. It'll appear to be good. Probably because it's new and it hasn't experienced a lot of hot-cold cycles. It hasn't gotten brittle. But apparently the main cause, oh, and just so you see, if you look at the drum, it kind of looks like a barbell. I'll use a pair of pliers so my fat fingers aren't covering it. Or I'll hold it from the axle. Try to hold it from the axle. One side of the drum is flat, one side of the drum has a flat with a protrusion, which actually fits in here. That's what keeps this drum centered, and that's also where the oil or grease that they would have used is, which is right in there for your lubrication. This side has a very thin amount, but there's, and you can see it there, you might see the shine. It's not the greatest lubrication, but it's what they decided would work. So let's reassemble it now that I recentered the friction disc and see if that was the biggest cause. Of course, now I gotta get this stupid spring back in place and not have it shoot out again. Stay. Good spring. It's kind of like a mousetrap. It's at an angle because there's nothing here to keep it centered, but this keeps tension on that. If you do take this apart, make sure you put the guys so they're going up and not going up in reverse. So put it on backwards. I think the easiest way to do this would be to start on one side and then stretch it against the tensioner. Probably easier to put the gear side in first. So, now, before I do that, let's make sure the tensioner rolls. It does. It rolls beautifully. This silver part on the white is another roller. If you ever work on cars, you have like a serpentine, you have a tensioner. It's a spring-loaded tensioner. It usually takes a big breaker bar to get it off your car when it breaks. Anyway, it's the same principle. That's what I was going for. So, it's under tension. I gotta hold it so it doesn't spring back. I've got good tension there. It might be a good thing the screw is still glued. I can get it started. Doing is I'm getting the tensioner to line up into the position it's supposed to be in on the top, and now I got to do this one with the gear. Of course, the last one's always going to be the hardest because it has the most pressure on it. And in And I'm also going to adjust the tension of these screws. I might tighten them and loosen them. These screws are squeezing on those drums, which the belt rides on. And if they're too tight and you pinch them really hard, they're not going to spin. And if you make them too loose, then it walks and then the belt starts shifting back and forth again. So I'm starting off at a medium snug. They're not super torqued. I'm going to tighten them all the way to see what the tension is, since I already spun it a little bit by hand. So now they're tight. I don't know if they're supposed to have a torque setting, but that's too tight. So that might be another cause. It might also be that they're over tightened from the factory, or at least this one was. So I'm going to back it off 1/4 turn. That works. That's actually moving pretty nice. And you see I'm measuring the belt gap with the screwdriver blade. It is twice as big on the right as on the left. And on this one, it is slightly same. So, let's see if we can clip this thing back together and give it a test run. Clip and screw, clip and screw. There's that one. There's that one. Push the fingers in. Line up the gear. And I'm going to use the flat of the screwdriver to press on the metal shaft. Like that. I believe she is in. Yeah, it's engaged. Just to double check that. Yeah, she's all the way down. And this screw here and this screw here hold in the escalator. These two screws in the bottom hold the base together. I am using a blade screwdriver on Phillips, and that's because the blade that I have grabs better than the Phillips. And apparently the cut of the Phillips is different than all my Phillips screwdrivers. And I get a little bit better grip with the blade. Normally I would use a Phillips, but you know, I want to use what's going to work the best. Also, this blade is magnetic. The Phillips are not. I do wish it was a slightly longer screwdriver though, so I can get back here to this one. Longer, it would be at a better angle, and I also wouldn't be smacking the other Santa Claus with the handle. There we go. Alright, make sure the escalator is all the way in. Push the fingers back. So, push this one. So, let's give it a whirl, see what happens. Hey, no more clicking! And it's moving like it's supposed to. So, if you have this piece, there's a good chance if it's clack, 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 and these are turning, but they're doing a jolt turn, that your problem is going to be this escalator. And it's going to be a pain in the butt to get to. Don't drop it, it won't break your house. Drop it, you're going to have some repairs. And at $170, brand new, you don't want to drop it. Like I said, I got this on clearance. It was $42, so a quarter of the price, because it broke. And I guess I didn't want to return it to Lemax. So. I'm going to let it run for a minute, because I want to make sure it doesn't quit working, because the belt's starting to walk. I don't know if you just saw the lady get caught with her handbag. The belt's moving. So, it's not 100% fixed. Now we have a problem with walking. The problem with belts. Unless they're in a groove, they have a tendency to relocate themselves. So, some of this could be the tension, the screws. Some of it could be that friction wheel, or hopefully not, when they drill the holes aren't like they're off and it's kicking it at an angle. So I'm going to slide the belt over. To the outside edge. I'm going to slide this one a hair, and I'm going to see if it keeps its track or if it's going to walk again. Because I also could have put it on too far to one side, so. No, it's walking to the left. I can see it. Her handbag's going to hit probably in the next 1 or 2 revolutions. The gap that I closed up over here is now back, and they're starting to rub the outer handrail. It's weird, they're all carrying their handbags, gift bags in their left hand.
Merry Christmas!
I just put his arm piece back in because I can hear it rubbing and clicking on the plastic, so I don't want to think that something's broken. Okay, so I am going to have to work with this because she is walking to the right, or excuse me, the left. Just need to move him up a hair more so I can get to the belt. So the top drum is moving over where the belt is, and the bottom is staying centered. The bottom of it is not walking to either side. One way to compensate is I can try and take this friction disc, use a pick or something, and start pushing it over to the left so the belt moves to the right. Since there is no angle adjustments like you would have on a sander, as an example, a belt sander, or on old V belts, sometimes they had adjustments to adjust the belt so it's centered so it doesn't walk. And then tear up your belt. Causes problems if you do that. But we got rid of the clicking sound. We found out what the problem is. We found out how to take it apart. Hopefully if you all take it apart, you don't break it. But, so I'll come back to that. Let's take a look at this switch and see what is going on in here. And why the switch doesn't work like it's supposed to. This is probably a standard 5-wire switch from Lemax. And that's why it doesn't work. The screw is missing. Awesome. Anyway, it's a 5-wire switch. It's not the standard color code because they've gone pastel. And they're only using 4 wires. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Nope, 5. There it is. Nope, still a standard 5 wire. They used to be like red and black, and then blue and green and yellow. Now it's pastel green, pastel yellow, and then their power wires, which are the outer two, is gray and white. So they've changed their color code. That's why I said the switch wasn't as important to me, because generally they're either a broken wire or the screw has come out. It's usually always the same thing. It's one of those two, screw or broken wire. In this case, it's a missing screw. So feed it back around the strain relief pins. Those pins are there, so if you yank on this, it has to go around all these bends and all this friction to prevent you from breaking the wires off the switch. So, if I put pressure on it, there we go. Now it works. So, plug it in.
Merry Christmas.
So, I need a screw. Put it back together so it doesn't fall apart. And I'll try and locate one of these fine little screws later, because they're not standard and they're itty bitty. But my biggest issue now is trying to figure out how to adjust that belt from walking so it quits wedging the characters. Then once that's done, it just has to be reassembled. I gotta fix a hole and do another test. So I am going to adjust the friction. Now, when I was talking about using a pick or something to get underneath the belt instead of tearing it all apart, because you saw how much fun that is. You use a pick like this where it's 90 degrees. Try and fish it under the belt. Gotta be careful you don't puncture anything, because again, it's a pick, so it has a nice sharp point. We don't want to puncture it. Worst case is I'll make a tool. I'll get a small screwdriver like this if I have a couple of junky ones, and I'll bend this at a 90-degree angle, because the blade isn't as sharp as the point. So I am going to play with this, and since this is already an hour plus into the video, I'm going to do some adjustments, and then once I figure out what adjustments are required, I'll let you all know. You know how to take it apart. Now we just need to know if it's just a bad belt binding and how to fix it. But first I'm going to do is move the friction disc from the center to the left. Maybe that's why they had it over on the side, was because they know in the factory these things walk, and it was to compensate, and maybe it was just too far and then it's pushing everything to the right. So maybe it was a bad idea for me to adjust it. If I can't get in there with a tool to push it over, I am going to have to disassemble this again, have a little spring shoot out and a little tensioner, and put it all back together. So in the meantime, take a few minutes to play with this off camera, so the video is not 4 hours long, because I'm sure y'all have something better to do, and see if I can figure out what is causing this belt to walk to the left and wedge it, where when we first started working on it, it was walking to the right and wedging it. And part of the thing I do not like about this design, because all the screws are the same, is the screws actually protrude through, and the characters can physically touch those screws. So I'm not a big fan of that. I might actually take these two screws out and make them special screws by cutting the ends off of them. All they do is hold this outer, get the piece of foam, this outer gray ring that holds the barrels to the outer gray plastic, which is the housing as well as the support. So these screws don't have to go out any further than this darker gray insert. So I'm probably just going to snip the ends off and give me a little bit more play room and less likely to snag. I don't know if you can tell, these little guys, they just bounce because there's only a little bit of glue that they dab on underneath, and that's what holds them in place. So this is the house so far. I'll be back once I figure out how to keep this belt from walking. And then if I can show you how I did it, I will show you how I did it. Or I can tell you. And then glue all the pieces back on, try and repair the hole, reassemble it, and look at it as a fully functional house. For Christmas, that was 2 months ago. 6 weeks. So, anyway, shall return. Alright, here it is. Trying to show you as best I can with a cell phone steadying. The escalator's working. I didn't glue the one character on over here. You'll see the feet in just a moment. You can see the tree is rotating. His hands moving back and forth. Sound works. There's the feet. Here they come. But I glued everything else back on. I just forgot about that guy because I have to go get the box. Anyhow, clicks on. So that was just that screw. There it is. Anyhow, you probably caught a mistake I did in here because I had to catch it when I went back and reviewed it just to make sure what I did possibly wrong. That was the escalator. It was flat screws that were supposed to be in there, not the pointy screws. I grabbed the wrong screws, so that was my bad. I did rectify that situation. Nope, I still got some hot glue snot from sticking the sign back on. I did not glue this down with Gorilla Glue. Normally I would use Gorilla Glue to reattach the house to the base. I just used hot glue, like so. The reason being is if I ever take it apart again, I will do so. As far as the escalator goes, that rubber white, opaque clear rubber guide, if you push it all the way to the side, actually does help keep the belt more centered. That's what it's there for, as well as traction so it doesn't slip. Unfortunately, it doesn't keep it perfectly centered. So there is still the one character that occasionally smacks the handrail. But she smacks it up at the top, right about here where you can't see it, and it's not affecting the movement of the characters. So if you take yours apart and it's off to the side, leave it off to the side. I have mine all the way against the inner side of the drive barrel just to keep that belt as close to center as possible so the escalator doesn't get caught as the characters spin around. On the gear that was slipping, you can put a dab of super glue, Gorilla Glue, on it to help keep the gear from sliding. I've done that before. I did not do it on here because it's working just fine now. I think this got jostled too hard. Excuse me. And that's what caused the problem. That's what caused it to, well, malfunction and jump. I used hot glue on, well, everything. But his arm is hot glued on. So that way if I have to take it back apart, I can just snap his arm off and then readhere it later. That sounds pretty bad that you're snapping off Santa's arm. The Merry Christmas sign is glued back on with hot glue. It's all just hot glue, and that's so it's easier to work on in the future. When I get this character out of the box, when I grab the box down from the storage I put it in, because it is a large box, I will actually use Gorilla Glue on it. I'll probably use some of their yellow cap because it has the paintbrush. Because I'm not really worried about him being in the way of disassembly. I also did glue the characters in the pot back on because this one plant came off here and this character here, the nutcracker, popped off. I did just put those on with hot glue for now because if I ever do pop this off, because that's in a corner and that's on the edge, there's a chance that I'll break them off again. And if I use Gorilla Glue, it's probably not going to break where the Gorilla Glue is. It's going to break at his kneecaps or his ankles. And then this might just snap right where the planter is. So the only thing I have to do to this is put the rubber feet back on, which are right here. The ones that cover the screws. I did not fix the hole in the back yet. So if I flip this guy around, there's the hole. Boink. I do have all the pieces. I'm debating on whether or not to see if I can find a little Grinch come Christmas time and have him sticking out. just because it's kind of kind of funny. Or maybe even have him poking his head in, because you can see the hole goes all the way through right there, so you see him in the background like he's coming in to steal the presents. If not, I will glue the 3 pieces back together. Are right here, tilt them down, and then I will stick them inside the house. But I'm thinking the Grinch idea is kind of cool. If I can find a small keychain Grinch or a little figurine Grinch about the size of one of these guys, even if it was a fuzzy one that wasn't hard resin or cast Grinch, I think it'd be kind of cool. Have him like he's breaking in to steal the presents. So, but anyhow, you know how to take it apart. It's not the easiest. On a scale of 1 to 10, this house is probably close to an 8, because it is kind of scary, and as you saw, it's fragile, hence the hole in the back. But you're going to have to break the seams apart to get this whole entire piece up. Unplug the green wire that's inside this half. It's actually right here behind the door. So you can get the top off with the lights all intact. Don't forget to remove the Christmas tree and Santa's arm. You don't have to remove that screw I did. That was right back here. You do know if this pops off, though, it's just glued on. Once you do that, you have access to the drive mechanism over here, which controls the escalator and this. The gears on the bottom, of course, come over here just to drive the Christmas tree and Santa's arm. It's just one motor with a whole bunch of gear drives that are spread out. It doesn't have any pulleys, which means that you don't have any belts to snap for the most part. There's no big drive belts that run across the bottom, is what I mean, like some of the older ones had. But it's not horrible. It is kind of a pain to take apart. It's kind of scary at first. It's not something they want you to repair, like always. But as you can see, with a little time and some patience, you can do it, hopefully with minimal damage. Like I said, I wasn't intending on breaking the back of the house, but things happen. So once you get it apart, you know there's some screws in the escalator housing, top and bottom. You know that there's those snap pins on the bottom over here and over here behind this arch, that if you want to take the whole thing up, that the 3-dimensional equivalent balls in the background are just hot glued on, and they can pop off to get to the screws. That is 2 barrels with a spring-loaded tensioner on the bottom, right back here behind the more upstairs sign. It's got some basic parts that once you get to them, they're not too hard. If you break any of the gears, though, the gears that drive most of it are easy to get, but the big gears that are underneath and that access panel are a little bit tougher to find. There's no reference numbers on them. You can try and 3D print them, find broken houses, or just find random piles of gears and eventually find something that's the same diameter with the same teeth. But hopefully this helps. If you lose the screw that goes into your volume knob, if you can't find a replacement, a dab, and I mean a literal dot of super glue just to hold the wheel on. You don't want too much, because then you'll glue the cover on, which would be bad. Also, you probably wouldn't be able to ever fix the switch if it failed. So some basic Christmas music in the background. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Sorry that it's taking so long to get these newer videos out. You can see I have one I'm working on right there, which is Department 56. Some people may recognize what it is. But it's coming up. It's got a lot of issues. It's got a blown chip in it. So there's a preview of something that I've been working on, trying to replace the chip or make a new chip for it. Been working on it, unfortunately, for a long time, because getting parts from China is really hard, and it's taken almost 2.5 months to get the new circuitry. Also, coming up in the near future will be some UNESCO animated pieces, which they're not Department 56 or Lemax, but if you have some, maybe I can fix them, show you how to do it. Also, the principles are probably the same as Lemax and Department 56. It's just getting in to access them. So stay tuned, more will come. There has been some delays on our end. I apologize for. Unfortunately, we live in Arizona, and both myself and the other guy, who also is the editor, we have both in 2 different locations lost our air conditioning systems, which if you know anything about Arizona, it's not something you want, even though it is February. We have had days in the 80s where your house will reach 80 something, and to me that's not comfortable. I like to have the AC to cool it down. And on the flip side, when it's 40 degrees in the morning, I'd like to have the heater working, which unfortunately right now it doesn't function. So that's why there's been some delays, because climate control has been delayed a little, which puts a damper on doing stuff like this, because it either gets really hot or really cold. I prefer cold, which makes it more difficult to do things, as well as with business changes. So going through some changes here. Once everything settles out, hopefully the next couple of weeks, be back to a standard schedule of getting these out as fast as I can to help you out with your different series, whether it be Halloween based, Christmas based, Americana based, fall, autumn based houses, or just your standard animated any time of the year houses, such as the Disney specific ones. So until then, thanks for watching. Have a good one.